Hi, this is Andre, and thanks for checking out Synthesophy. Synthesophy is integrating the wisdoms of history, based on fact and truth, into present culture. The roots being synthesis, history, and Sophie as in philosophy. Sophie, the Greek root meaning wisdom, knowledge. Today we're going to add something to chapter 29. What can we do? That's because that chapter was written back in 2018, and things have developed a bit in the past 7 years, so we're adding now a little bit to chapter 29. Recall, in an earlier video, we noted that Trump was a bully, a narcissist, someone with delusions, and a sociopath. And in our video last week, we noted that the Democratic Party is out of touch with reality. They're unreal, and their arrogance begets their ignorance. As a result, our country is now in pretty dire straits. We are extremely polarized, as can be seen in this study done by the Pew Research Center, showing us that polarization surges among the politically engaged. We can look here at the result of the survey and see back in 1994, Democrats and Republicans overlapped quite a bit. This side, Democrats consistently liberal. This side, Republicans consistently conservative. Same survey 10 years later in 2004 shows us there's starting to be a little split between the Democrats and Republicans. 10 years after that, we see the split getting even larger. We're starting to see an upside down bell curve. By 2017, it gets even more pronounced. Upside down bell curve, very little overlap. We would project the survey we're done now in 2024, the polarization would be even greater. Hyperpolarization. Huge upside down bell curve, very little overlap. Our democracy is in jeopardy. We're hyperpolarized. Why are we like this? One reason is because we have a president living in an alternate reality, along with many of his supporters, leading us to a fascist state. Now that's a huge statement. I know. But let's see if Trump has the following fascist traits. Is Trump a dictator? Check. Is he a nationalist? Check. Is he a militarist? How about that parade? Check. Does he suppress opposition through intimidation, propaganda, and violence? How about January 6th? Check. Is he anti-democratic? Check. Is he xenophobic? Fear of other? Check. Does he fixate on national decline? That's, I think, why we want to make America great again. Check. Disdain for intellectualism and truth, as in alternative facts. Check. Has a cult following? Check. Scapegoating. It's never his fault. Check. I'd say, based on this information, yep, he's a fascist. Here's a recent quote from George Will. conservative, referring to James Madison. Quote, James Madison, in one of the greatest understatements in political history, says in 9 words in Federalist 10, enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm, end quote. I wonder who he's referring to. Remember what we mentioned last week about Democrats and the Democratic Party? In 1992, in his presidential campaign, Ross Perot said that NAFTA would make a giant sucking sound, referring to the sound of U.S. manufacturing jobs headed south for Mexico. And that's exactly what happened. Do you recall that Obama did not have the political moxie, gumption, the balls to take aggressive political action, which by definition is a necessity in politics, or else someone else does, and you get steamrolled, which is exactly what happened to Obama in his second term. If President Biden had done as he originally said after taking office in 2021, that he would not be running for a second term, he may have gone down in history as one of the best presidents. But he did run for a second term and withdrew from the race on July 21st, 2024, 3.5 months before the election, and asked Kamala Harris to take his place. He may now go down in history as one of the worst. And now the Democratic National Committee's audit of the 2024 presidential campaign will avoid the questions of whether President Joe Biden should have run for re-election in the first place, whether he should have exited the race earlier than he did, and whether former Vice President Kamala Harris was the right choice to replace him. Duh, that's the reason they lost. The public is not that stupid. Apparently, the Democrats think we are. The Democratic Party is out of touch with reality. They're unreal, and their arrogance begets their ignorance. And that's why minority voters, Black, Hispanic, Asian, and others, a longtime staple of Democratic success, are leaving the party. They feel left out, looked down on, and ignored by the Democratic Party. So what can we do now with our two-party system, where one side is fascist and the other is so arrogant they can't see their own ignorance? Well, on the Republican side, it's get on Trump's boat or get blown out of the water. Republicans are caving to Trump. And those that aren't or didn't are leaving or have already left the House and Senate. So there's no hope for change on the Republican side of the aisle. There is hope on the Democratic side. Small groups of Democrats from both the House and Senate are sick of the party's status quo and want to build a path not just to winning the next election, but ultimately breaking the stalemate that has defined U.S. politics for the last 3 decades. They call themselves the majority Democrats. And questions have been posed as to whether the Democratic Party will go centrist in the 2028 presidential campaign. But what about the upcoming midterms? Here's how I see it. 3 things can happen. 1, nothing changes, and the Democratic Party remains arrogant and ignorant, and again, loses the House and Senate in 2026. Number 2, the majority Democrats stop the bleeding, gain steam, move the Democratic Party slightly right, and that might tip the scales in favor of Democrats in the House and Senate races. Or 3, maybe now it's time for a centrist third party. How can that happen? Recruit centrist Republican retired congressmen like Mitt Romney, Adam Kinzinger, Jeff Flake, and many others, and have a majority of Democrats in the House and Senate swing towards the center, and then have centrist Republicans and centrist Democrats create the centrist party. We have never been as politically polarized as we are now. If ever there was a time for a third party, the time is now. Let's do it and make history.